I can't stop making Christmas cards. I made these 5 Christmas cards on a black paper, which has a wonderful structure. Obviously, they turned out pretty dark, which I like. So, if you're not sick of all my Christmas card tutorials, I'll show you how I made them. Hello, Gelli fans. As I am obviously addicted to making more and more Christmas cards, I made these new cards partly with the help of a tree stencil that I designed myself. I used it last year, also combining a board stencil here. This is the black paper I used. Black watercolor paper by Van Gogh, fine grain and about 360 GSM. It has this nice texture that you can see in this landscape that I printed and developed the other day. It is not yet finished and probably will be in my next video. Taping the stencil to the self-made stencil. I will be printing with a 6x6 Gelli Plate, which is just the size of my envelopes for the cards. I will print mainly with the Golden Open colors. There are a few effects that work better for me with them. But you can use normal acrylics as well, or etching inks if you have some. Starting with the white, I am preparing some backgrounds first. Mixing this with my favorite color, quinacridone nickelazo gold, to get a gradient of these two colors. Registering the edge of the paper here. Inked up with the ultramarine blue, which is a light and half opaque color. Using the stencil mix for my second background. This is a blue and red mix to pick up what's left on the plate. Nickelazo gold and white again. This is some weedy stuff that I usually use for Easter cards, printing nests. It gives lovely structures. Picking up the excess color creates a lovely pattern, so I can use this as a background too. Now I have to use my newly purchased feathers. I have a feather addiction too. You should fumble the feathers apart a little, that way they look more interesting in the print. I will place them to resemble a Christmas tree here, as you've seen me do before. Sorry the camera went off when I put the feathers on, but you can see it here. I am now taking them off and printing what's underneath. The paper shows through where the feathers block the color off. Beautiful effect. Again, the camera didn't record when I made this white and blue gradient. Putting on the feathers once more. And I printed this on the lovely background with a weedy texture. Printing this one on a failed background that I've made before. I like this much better. Feathers never disappoint me. Making a gradient once more and putting feathers on it. On this background, I am printing what's outside the feather tree on the background. Nice combination. Here I'm doing something that you can only do with the open colors, as they stay wet even on the paper for a while. Using the stencil and a baby wipe to create a subtle dog-in-dog pattern. New gradient, same feathers, and I want to force the feather texture into this tree shape. That was a print I made with strings on. I don't like how it is now. So I'm going on, printing with red and the weedy stuff again. And that produced a second tree over the first. And it looks interesting enough to develop it further. It's time for the gold. Masking the openings around the star stencil here, make sure you tape the other side as well so the tape in the openings does not take color off the paper. This is a gold by System 3. It doesn't work well with the Brayer because the stencil is so thick. So I'm using a tissue to print the gold color through, just because I'm too lazy to get a stencil brush out. Starting with the developing, drawing shadows with colored pencils. Here you can see the interesting texture the paper has. I don't need to enhance it in the background in this case. There's a little bit of decalcomania showing up on the top rim here. These structures come in areas where the paint is put on a bit thicker and lifted up quickly. That also happens more often with the open colors. I enhance it here with a black pencil, adding Titan buff with a pencil around the tree to make it pop a bit more. There is also a slight difference in the light tones in the background, which I am strengthening just a little. And adding a little highlight with the Titan buff here. Beautiful. Probably gonna add some Merry Christmas letters later. The other ones get stars too, but I'm using a golden ink pen here. That's easier with the stencil. This is my ugly duckling, and I'm thinking, nothing too ugly for being changed with a bit of gold. I'm suddenly turning this into a Klimt-like tree here. But before I go on with the gold, I have to strengthen quite a few of these lines that were produced with strings and twine, which I did not film. Enhancing the other tree or tree shadow in the back a little with a blue pencil. So this is the Klimpty version of a Christmas tree. Now this one I really like. It has the outlines of the feathers, but not the texture of the feathers, but something else. That's really interesting. And this doesn't need too much working on. Just some shadows here and there, and some defining of details. Here you can see how I work on the paper structure inside the tree. It gives the print something like a screen print effect. Very nice. I like it a lot, this one. Next one. This one needs a lot of work on the feathers. As the print is quite dark, I'm using a blue fineliner, not the pencils. Some white marker for snowflakes. And snowflakes have shadows also. Beautiful and dark. Now for the last one. This is a print with which, if I hadn't filmed it, I really couldn't tell you how it developed. The tree has this stencil and feather structures mixed, which I probably could not reproduce. A little Titan buff for some highlights and feather details in black pencil. I later added some subtle gold pencil, but not too much. So I hope you were not too unnerved with yet another Christmas card tutorial. Promise I'll make something different next time, like this dark landscape. Merry Christmas everybody, and peace on earth.